We'll go ahead and get started. First off, half a day and good afternoon to our visitors here in the gallery, the folks from OPA, and also half a day and five show to all those viewing in the online and on cable TV. I'd like to now call this first day, third special session to order. Let us all rise for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you, colleagues. I now recognize the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Bada,
Present.
Representative Batal,
Present.
Representative Selena Babauta,
Presente.
Representative Sheila Babauta, Representative Joel Kamotsu,
Presente.
Representative Vicente Kamotsu,
Present.
Representative Representative Demapan,
Istiga.
Representative Flores,
Present.
Representative Guerrero, Representative Lizama,
Istiga.
Representative Magofnia,
Stiga.
Representative Manglotnia, Representative Probes,
Present.
Representative Christina Sablan,
Present.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Istiga.
Representative St. Nicholas,
Present.
Representative Staffler,
Here.
Mr. Speaker,
Present.
Representative Yang Tamay,
Yangi.
Representative Yumo,
Present.
Representative Sheila Babauta, Representative Manglotnia. Mr. Speaker, 18 members are present and 2 members are absent.
Thank you, clerk. With 18 members present and 2 absent, it constitutes a quorum for today's session. Please note that Representative Donald Maglonia is hereby excused. We have Representative Probst present with us virtually. Does anybody have any word on Representative Sheila Babauta? Recognize Rep. Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker. I believe that her letter of absence is forthcoming. I had messaged her during our leadership meeting, and she said that it is forthcoming.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Clerk, please take note of that. Thank you. We now move down to item number 2, public comments. Please state your name and the entity you represent. You'll be given 3 minutes, and if you need more time, we can grant that. Floor is open now for public comments. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Speaker Villagomez, and to the Honorable Legislative Body here today. And by the way, I might need a little bit more than 3 minutes, Speaker, because this is a very important legislation that I wanted to talk about and why OPA is back here again to provide inputs. So I would like to have this statement be considered as supplement to my prior House communication and statements during the Ways and Means Committee hearing. The Office of the Public Auditor, as a regulatory agency of the CNMI, needs to be assured of its funding without compromising independence. The importance of this independence was explicitly recognized in Public Law 9-68, creating the percentage-based funding for OPA to keep OPA out of the political budgetary process. This current effort by CPA requiring OPA to defend its funding without any actual federal agency findings represents precisely the scenario the 9th Legislature sought to avoid. Should this legislation pass, OPA will be at risk of a continuous journey of having to defend its funding source and independence every time a bill of this nature is brought forward. This is why the framework of the fixed 1% fee was enacted into legislation. This legislation on the floor to be enacted without an actual definitive answer from the FAA regarding the noncompliance with its revenue diversion statute pertaining to OPA's 1% payment does not represent good governance. CPA has undertaken such effort to change this law when they currently face at least 18 FAA noncompliance and unresolved audit findings, all of which could potentially place CPA's funding at risk. And none of those represent findings that have to do with CPA's current obligations to pay OPA's 1% fee. Further, FAA officials have appeared before this body on behalf of CPA to change our laws, when the FAA has never made any affirmative finding that payment by CPA of their legal obligations would constitute a revenue diversion under their policies. While they were willing to explain what sort of fee arrangement would be allowed for FAA reimbursement, they could not provide a final determination of whether OPA's fixed fee is indeed a violation of FAA statute. In fact, we were advised that if we wanted such determination, a written request would have to be submitted. The CNMI is not arguing that OPA fees be reimbursed from CPA's federal grants. The CNMI is taking a position that CPA remit 1% of its locally generated funds per CNMI law. While this has been seen as a potential violation of FAA's revenue diversion statute, FAA does provide guidance in which such payment is allowable. In addition to the concerns above, the bill also contains several other concerns. First, the 5-year sunset provision is excessive. It should not take 5 years to obtain a final decision from the FAA, and 5 years is not equitable to other autonomous agencies and public corporations that have to absorb their share of OPA's 1% fee. Secondly, the provision that allows for a fee structure based on OPA's actual services involving CPA violates OPA's confidentiality requirements. While a fee structure billing may be feasible for audits, it would shift the burden on OPA to implement a billing mechanism for one agency. Moreover, by law, OPA operates under strict confidentiality with respect to its work on fraud, waste, and abuse investigations and under the Commonwealth Ethics Code Act. OPA cannot simply bill an agency for an investigation activity. To disclose such information would be unlawful and would compromise the integrity of OPA's investigative function. No Office of Inspector General would ever be required to implement such flawed billing mechanism. I oppose a 5-year sunset provision and most especially a permanent exemption for a matter that is currently unresolved, and the mere fact that the CNMI has not been given ample time to address the potential noncompliance. A short-term temporary exemption to allow for resolution on revenue diversion is reasonable. As you deliberate, please consider all the facts and data that we've presented, the FAA statutes that we've provided, and prior statements I've made to ensure you are acting on a legislation based on substantiated guiding principles and reference materials. Do not be pressured into voting for legislation that is very impactful to a CNMI regulatory agency. Again, I ask that this legislative body allow OPA as a regulatory agency of the CNMI to function and exist without the continued threat of its funding and independence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Peter. Uh, If you would
Privilege, Mr. Speaker.
recognize Representative Tina
May
Sublime.
I just request that a copy of Ms. Peters' comments be circulated to all of the members?
That's
during
what I was going to
the
get to.
session,
Yeah, to get to the Sergeant at Arms if she would like to submit it for our
But if we
review
could all
and
get a
for
copy.
record. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Rep Tina, and thank you, Sarge. Floor is still open for public comments. With no further public comments, we'll move down to item number 3, adoption of journals, and we have none. We now move down to item number 4, introduction of bills, and I recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Speaker. May I make a statement before I introduce the bill?
Proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to thank the House leadership for affording me the privilege to have served as a member of the House Judiciary and Governmental Operations JGO Committee. I am honored to serve our people and this honorable body. As we worked through the arduous fact-finding process addressing public corruption, I asked myself, why would anyone engage in acts that would violate the public trust? In speaking to our people in our community, the one common response to that question was, the laws are too lenient, there's no deterrence. House Bill 22-104, cited as the Sinai Public Servant Anti-Corruption Act of 2022, addresses those issues of leniency and lack of deterrence to such acts that, when perpetrated, violates the public trust. I am honored and privileged to now introduce House Bill 22-104 to amend Title I, Division 8 of the Commonwealth Code by adding a new chapter to enact provisions associated with public corruption, official misconduct, other unlawful influences, and related offenses for public officials and for other purposes, preferred by myself and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. House Bill 22-104 will be referred to the Committee on JGO. With no uh, with no more House bills under introduction of bills, we now move down to House local bills, and I recognize Representative Patrick San Nicolas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to officially appropriate House Local Bill number 22-35 to appropriate 140,000 from revenues collected from poker fees in the second senatorial district and for other purposes. And if I may continue, Mr. Speaker, to introduce
Proceed.
House Local Bill number 22-36 to make supplemental appropriation for the personnel and operation of Tinian Casino Gaming Control Commission for fiscal year 2022 pursuant to 10 CMC subsection 2581, Tinian Local Law 21-9 and 1 CMC subsection 1405A, Public Law 11-17, preferred by myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative San Nicolas. With no more under House local bills, we now move down to item C, House legislative initiatives, and I recognize Representative Corina Magofnia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Oops. Formally introducing House Local Legislative Initiative 22-2 to amend Article 3, Section 12 of the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands to authorize the election of a public auditor and for other purposes, pre-filed by myself and several others. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Magofnia. House legislative initiative number 22-2 will be referred to the Committee on JGO. Thank you, members. We now move down to item number 5, introduction of resolutions, and I recognize Representative Corina Magofnia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Formally introducing House Resolution 22-20 to strongly urge Governor Ralph de Leon Guerrero Torres to issue a new $1,000 Commonwealth Utilities Corporation Utilities voucher to provide much-needed financial relief to all qualified households in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, pre-filed by myself and several others. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Magofnia. House Resolution 22-20 will be referred to the calendar today for action. Under House Resolution number 22-21, I'd like to introduce this resolution to remember and honor the late Elias Parong Sablan for his, how do you pronounce this word? Oh, munificent dedication, contributions, and sacrifices that left an indelible impact in the lives of the people of Saipan by being one of the very first island local leaders to organize the political, social, and economic trajectory of Saipan post-World War II and steered the progress for the people of Saipan to return to self-sufficiency. Pre-filed by myself and several others, and if there's no objection, I'd like this to be introduced as a committee of the whole. No objection. All right, thank you, members. House Resolution number 22-21 will be on resolution calendar today for action. We have none under House Joint Resolution. We have none under House Commemorative Resolutions and none under House Concurrent Resolutions. We now move down to item number 6, messages from the governor, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 6, messages from the governor, we have one item, Governor's Communication 22-130.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under messages from the governor? Ready? All right, with no further discussions, we now move down to item number 7, and I recognize the clerk. Senate Communication.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under item 7, Senate Communications, we have Senate Communication 22-95 through 22-101.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the proper motion to accept Senate Communications. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I now offer a motion to accept Senate Communication 22-95 through 22-101. So moved.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to accept Senate Communications and has been seconded. Any discussions on the floor? Ready? All in favor to accept Senate Communications so that they become property of the House, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Senate motion carries. Okay, members, for Senate Communications 22-96, we'll be referring that Senate communication to the Committee on Ways and Means. For Senate Communications 22-97, will be placed on today's resolution calendar for action. Senate Communications 22-98 will also be placed on bill calendar today for action. Thank you, members. And with no further discussions, we now move down to item number 8, House Communications, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Under item 8, House Communications, we have two items, House Communication 2285 and 2286.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under House Communications? None? Ready? All right. We now move down to item number 9, communications from the judicial branch. We have none. Item number 10, communications from departments and agencies. We have none. Item number 11, miscellaneous communications, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Under item 11, miscellaneous communications, we have one item, miscellaneous communication 22-119.
Thank you, clerk. Any discussions under miscellaneous communications? Ready? Thank you, members. We now move down to item number 12, reports of standing committees, and I recognize the clerk.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. Under item 12, reports of standing committees, we have 3 standing committee reports ready for House action. Standing Committee Report 2248, 2249, and 2250.
Thank you, clerk. I now recognize the floor leader for the proper motions. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'll offer a motion to adopt, right? Yes. And I'll offer a motion to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-50, reporting on House Bill number 22-102, entitled to exempt public corporation and autonomous agencies from paying the 1% public auditor fee. So move. Your House Committee on Ways and Means recommends that the House passes the bill in the form of House Bill number 22-102 HS1. So move.
Thank you, floor leader. Motion has been made by the floor leader to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-50, and it has been seconded. Any discussions? Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And colleagues, this report reflects the efforts of the Ways and Means Committee to review and understand the concerns raised by the Commonwealth Ports Authority, the Office of the Public Auditor, the Department of Finance, and the Federal Aviation Administration. The substitute bill represents the committee's attempt to strike a balance, to provide some temporary limited relief for CPA, and to afford the agencies time to resolve the question of whether the OPA 1% fee is unlawful revenue diversion or not. The committee recommends that the exemption apply only as to airport revenues, which is the matter in dispute. CPA does not dispute the 1% fee as to seaport revenues and would still be required to pay that fee for all other non-airport related revenues, since those issues are not in dispute. The original bill also proposed a sunset clause of 3 years for exemption. The speaker did share with the committee members that he preferred no sunset clause and a permanent exemption. And in the spirit of compromise, Chairman Donald Manglonia, who's not able to be here today, proposed an amendment in committee to extend the sunset clause to 5 years. We do recognize, as you all already heard, that OPA objects to this longer term and especially objects to a permanent exemption. But the committee report does include the comments, the correspondence, and the audit reports that we received from the Office of the Public Auditor and the Commonwealth Ports Authority. And I'd like to ask Mr. Speaker and colleagues, if there are no objections, that we also include as part of this committee report the comments that we received from OPA today during the public comments period. And we do recommend passage of the House substitute for House Bill 22102. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Council, we can include today's written public comment. I mean, the auditor did, verbally express it today, and so we can include it without any amendments to the.
Because we're discussing STR.
Yeah. So the standing committee. So we'll just include it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Clerk. Thank you, Council. I recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues and the viewing public. I would like to offer my thoughts on the ongoing matter between the Office of the Public Auditor, the Commonwealth Ports Authority, and the Sinamay Legislature. After weeks of hearings, sessions, testimonies, multiple suggestions of substitute legislations, opinions, stated concerns, and so forth, a definitive yes or no answer to the question, does subsection 7831B under 1 CMC violate any federal laws, mandates, rules, regulations, policies, and/or practices? Depending on which semantics used sounds more convincing, the definitive answer seems to be both yes and no. The back and forth being from a federal perspective and not a local approach, as it should be. Honorable men and women in prior legislatures saw the evolving process of self-governance as the young Commonwealth grows towards maturity by creating legislation reflective of granting autonomy to public instruments of a young Commonwealth. With the best intentions from a local perspective, these honorable men and women from prior legislatures granted MIHA, now NMHC, PSS, and CHCC, not just some level of autonomy, but also exemptions from subsection 7831B, 1 CMC, specifically as it relates to 1% remittance to be used as budgetary funding means for OPA. I therefore recommend the following suggestive solutions. Grant CPA, both airport and seaport, as well as CUC conditional exemptions, that CPA communicate with FAA through already established means of communications to have FAA provide the definitive answer that we've been seeking, and for CPA to report back that exclusive answer to the legislature no later than 120 days from the time of its passage of this bill. That this conditional exemption only applies to the 1% remittance or other parts of subsection 7831B, 1 CMC, under section 12, article 3 of the Sinamay Constitution remains and is not affected. That OPA maintains all regulatory and investigative oversight provided by all Sinamay laws pertaining to locally generated funds, expenditures, and use as well as administrative functions. To fund OPA directly through direct appropriations from this legislature by decreasing the appropriations budget of all instruments of the CNMI not exempted from subsection 7831B by that same 1%, with the cumulative total being directly appropriated to OPA at the start of every fiscal year, like all other entities. This will ensure transparency and compliance. It is the very responsibility of this legislature to appropriate the budgetary needs of our government to provide the services that our people pay in the form of taxes. It is not the responsibility of a department head, in the current case, multiple department heads, to decide when to provide the budgetary needs of the OPA. In closing, our people elected us to work together and find solutions. I know we can accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. The floor is still open for discussions. Recognize Representative Leila Staffler.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for sharing your thoughts so far. I too feel very conflicted about this bill. I do hear from the OPA leadership about the concerns they have with respect to the objectives they must meet in order to keep accountability at the forefront of our government operations. They have to have that financial security with the 1%. I look at the FAA laws that do talk about revenue diversion, and I do see that there is an issue that does need to be addressed. I guess I feel that the urgency that is being presented to us is not documented enough in the form of a letter from FAA that actually says you are at risk of losing your grants. At least I did not receive that in anything that was provided to us thus far. And just looking at the history of FAA revenue diversion since 2019, an article was put out just saying how there are a huge number of non-compliant jurisdictions that are still being addressed with FAA, and in that number, more than 90% of them were still non-compliant. And so for me, I feel that the urgency to which this bill is being requested, I'd like to see that letter from the FAA personally. And with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Floor is still open. We're ready? All right, so again, the motion is to adopt Standing Committee Report number 22-50. All in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report number 22-50, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-50 is hereby adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And now for a motion to adopt Senate Standing Committee Report 22-48, reporting on House Bill number 22-86 to amend 1 CMC Section 26018, Amendment of Vital Records. Your Committee on Health and Welfare recommends that the House pass the bill in form of House Bill number 22-86 HD1. So moved.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-48 and has been seconded. Discussions. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. This report summarizes the work of the Health and Welfare Committee over the course of about a year now, beginning with the CNMI Pride Talks last June in 2021. Pride Talks was a policy roundtable that the committee hosted with LGBTQ plus advocates and community partners to hold a dialogue on what the legislature could do to make the CNMI a better, safer, and more loving and respectful place for our LGBTQ plus members of our community. So this bill, 2286, is one of the products of Pride Talks and other discussions and public meetings that the committee has had over the last year. It would update and ease the process for trans individuals to match the gender markers on their birth certificates to their gender identities. The committee received oral and written comments from LGBTQ plus advocates and allies, from the Commonwealth Healthcare Corporation, and other concerned citizens, all in support of this legislation. We also received a petition signed by approximately 500 people, also in support of the bill. And these comments and the petition have been made part of the report. The committee did amend the bill to incorporate amendments from CHCC's Vital Statistics Registrar to require attestations under penalty of law, the signature of a parent, legal guardian, or legal representative in the case of registrants who are under the age of 18, and who are requesting changes to their birth certificates. The committee recommends passage of the bill as amended, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? Ready. All right. All in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-48, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-48 is hereby adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to adopt Standing Committee Report number 22-49, reporting on House Bill number 22-87, entitled "To Prohibit Discrimination on the Basis of Sex, Gender, and Sexual Orientation, to be known as the Sinai Equality Act." As stated, your House Committee on Health and Welfare recommends that the House pass House Bill number 22-87 in its current form. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt Standing Committee Report 22-49 and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan, and you have to read the full title of the bill first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. The Sinai Equality Act, also known as Aktun Atse Parehu or Alehu Awewe Pach, of 2021 is also the product of work that was undertaken by the Health and Welfare Committee, again since last year, beginning with Sinai Pride Talks. So this bill would prohibit discrimination on the basis of sex, gender orientation, gender identity, and sexual orientation, and it inserts these protections wherever non-discrimination policies already exist in our statutes. The Health and Welfare Committee received written and oral comments in support of this bill during public meetings, and beginning with Pride Talks and since then. These comments included testimonies from LGBTQ plus advocates, the Attorney General, and a petition signed by approximately 500 people. The comments are made part of the report, along with reports and data on the discrimination and harassment that LGBTQ plus people face in the United States, in the territories, and here in the Marianas, including our own school system among our youth. I'm happy to answer any questions. We do recommend passage of this bill in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sablan. Good job. Floor is open for discussion. Ready? All right. All in favor to adopt Standing Committee Report number 22-49, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Standing Committee Report 22-49 is hereby adopted. We have no more Standing Committee reports under item number 12. We now move down to item number 13, reports of special and conference committees. We have none. Item number 14, unfinished business. We have none. We now move down to item number 15, resolution calendar, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First on our list of our many resolutions is I now offer a motion to adopt House Resolution number 22-20, a House resolution to strongly urge Governor Raul de Leon Guerrero Torres to issue a new $1,000 Commonwealth Utilities Corporation utility vouchers to provide much needed financial relief to all qualified household in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt House Resolution number 22-20, and it has been seconded. Discussions on the floor? Recognize Representative Joel Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd just like to thank the author of this bill. I highly support this intent. I've got the third message today from a constituent of mine in Precinct 4 whose power has been disconnected. It's the third time, and it's really heartbreaking. Um, I wish there was more that we could do as legislators to help them in that respect. But right now, I think this is one way to address that issue, and I thank you for that, Rep. Marina. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Joel Camacho. I recognize Representative John Paul Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do also support this resolution proposed by our good colleague Corina, and I thank her for offering this resolution. But I just want to also ask her if it's not too much to ask, and if she's open that we offer this as a committee as a whole. I know that not all members, and I'm not too sure if there's any objection with other members with this very, very good proposal. So just want to ask the author if she's okay, if we can offer it as committee as a whole. Thank you.
Recognize Rep. Karina.
Absolutely.
Mm.
May I also just make a
Yes.
brief statement? And so,
Recognize.
the intent of the resolution was to offer some immediate relief to our people. And although the governor has publicly come out and said that he will be issuing a $500 stimulus card, at which he also suggested that it could be used to pay CUC. I strongly feel that stimulus can be used for food or other necessities, much needed necessities, and that this $1,000 voucher can definitely assist our people with regards to their CEC bills. So, with that, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Magofnia. Vice Speaker, you had your hands up earlier.
I was actually going to ask the same point that Representative John Paul Sablan had brought up, if it was all right, that we introduce as a committee of the whole. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Thank you, Vice Speaker. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? All in favor to adopt House Resolution number 22-20, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Resolution number 22-20 is hereby adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to adopt House Resolution number 22-21, a House resolution to remember and honor the late Elias Parong Sablan for his munificent dedication, contribution, and sacrifices that left an indelible impact in the lives of the people of the people of Saipan by being one of the very first island local leaders to organize the political, social, and economic trajectory of Saipan post World War II and steered the progress for the people of Saipan to return to self sufficiency. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made by the Floor Leader to adopt House Resolution number 22-21 and has been seconded. Floor is open for discussion. We're ready? All right. All in favor to adopt House Resolution number 22-21, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Resolution number 22-21 is hereby adopted. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And last on our list, I now offer a motion to adopt Senate Joint Resolution number 22-12, a Senate Joint Resolution to acknowledge and commemorate CLO Gutierrez Long for her unselfish contribution to the community as a scholar and a member of the 17th and 18th Commonwealth Northern Mariana Islands Youth Congress. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to adopt Senate Joint Resolution number 22-12 and and it's been seconded. Floor is open for discussion. Ready? All right. With no further discussions, I recognize the clerk to please call the roll.
Representative Ada? Representative Patel,
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta,
Again.
Representative Joel Komatsu,
Again.
Representative Vicente Komatsu,
Yes.
Representative Demapan,
Good.
Representative Flores,
Yes.
Representative Guerrero, Representative Lizama,
Again.
Representative Makovnia,
Hungan.
Representative Probst,
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan,
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Hungan.
Representative Jose Nicolas,
Yes.
Representative Staffler,
Hungan.
Representative Yang Tamay,
Howard.
Representative Yumo,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, Senate Joint Resolution number 22-12 is hereby adopted. Thank you, members. We now move down to bill calendar, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before we go through the bill calendar, I would offer a motion so that we are in line with the rules. I offer a motion to suspend Rule number 7, Section 9, Committee Reports, and Rule 9, Section 9 and 10. So move.
A motion has been made by the floor leader to suspend pertinent rules and has been seconded. Discussion. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you. May I just ask for clarification on what the suspension of rules pertains to?
Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the suspension is for Senate Bill 22-59 and House Bill number 22-22.
That's the
HD1S.
that's the bioprospecting, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So just so we could act on these Senate communications that we just received today. Floor is still open for further discussions. Recognize Representative Patrick and Nicholas.
So this is, thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to put all the calendar for actions.
Yes, to allow that we take action minus committee reports um, and other documents.
Thank you.
Floor is still open for discussions.
Ready, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, ready? All in favor to suspend the pertinent rules as mentioned by the floor leader, please say aye. All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. Motion carries. Recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And first on our list, and this would be beneficial to the island of Tinian, and I'll offer a motion to pass Senate Bill number 22-59, a bill for an act to rename the Tinian Head Start Early Head Start Center, the Magdalena M. Hofschneider Head Start and Early Head Start Center. So move.
Second.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to pass Senate Bill number 22-59 and has been seconded. Discussions on the floor. Recognize Representative Patrick San Nicolas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I want to probably thank the JGO chair for bringing this out for action and for passage today. I hope, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I ask that we pass this in Bill 22-59 today. Ms. Madalena of Schneider has selflessly served over 20 years in educating our youngs and youths, which all began all over, all the way back to 1954. She was so dedicated woman to educate as a Head Start coordinator by the and recognized as a prominent educator and a coordinator by or as well as Head Start director. I just want to say that Mrs. Madalena Manglonia of Schneider deserves this honor to have her name up there. And I want to thank the author of this bill, uh, Senate of the President, and all the members of the Senate that voted this bill to unanimously. And I thank you all. It's been so honored that we have to act on this. And I thank again our chair of our JGO committee and the representative, our colleagues in this house. Thank you all. And this time I yield.
Thank you, Representative San Nicolas, and I'll recognize Representative Selena Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to my colleague from Tinian, Representative Patrick H. San Nicolas. It is my pleasure to have this bill passed today. I support it. I have known Denang, as she is commonly known to family members, through her children who were educated here in Saipan in the 80s when there was no high school in Tinian at the time. I know that as a result of her dedication to education, at least one of her children is also an educator. And I want to say congratulations to Denang and her family for a well-deserved bill in her honor. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Selena Babauta. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? All right, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Bada? Representative Atal?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Hungan.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
Hungan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Demapan?
Again.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero? Representative Lizama?
Gun.
Representative Magofnia?
Hungan.
Representative Probst?
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Hungan.
Representative San Nicolas?
Yes.
Representative Staffler?
Hungan.
Representative Yang Thamay?
Awal.
Representative Yumo?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, Senate Bill number 22-59 hereby passes the House. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22 HD1 SD1, a bill for an act to establish laws to regulate bioprospecting activities within the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands in order to ensure prior informed consent and equitable sharing of benefits. So move.
Second.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to pass House Bill number 22-22 HD1 SD1 and has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. Recognize Leader Angel Demapan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to thank the Senate for passing this bill with amendments from their side. And now that we have it before us, I have reviewed the amendments from the Senate and find that the amendments don't dramatically alter the intent of the bill, and just wanted to state for the record and to establish legislative intent that the amendments that have been made on this bill, both in HD1 and SD1, and should we approve today in its entirety, that we establish legislative intent that these amendments and the language of this legislation pertain specifically to bioprospecting activities in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Having said that, I request the support of the members to pass this bill today. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Demapan. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Ada? Representative Atal?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
Hungan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Demapan,
Hungan.
Representative Flores,
Yes.
Representative Guerrero, Representative Lizama,
Gan.
Representative Magofnia,
Yes.
Representative Probst,
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan,
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Ungan.
Representative San Nicolas,
Yes.
Representative Staffler,
Ungan.
Representative Yanktamai,
Ungan.
Representative Yumo.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With 18 members present voting yes, House Bill 22-22 HD1 SD1 hereby passes the House. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22-86 HD1, a bill for an act to amend 1 CMC 26018, amendment of the vital record. So moved.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made to pass House Bill number 22-86 HD1 and has been seconded. Discussions on the floor. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I'd like to ask for your support for this legislation, which would update the Vital Statistics Act to be consistent with current medical standards of care and best practices, and would make it easier for individuals to change the gender markers on their birth certificates to match their gender identities. And this is so important for trans individuals in our community who have had a hard time doing so, getting identification documents that match their gender identities. And you need identification documents for many critical areas of life, whether you're applying for a job or trying to obtain some kind of benefit. Identification documents are so important, and having them match is also just important for the health and well-being of trans individuals in our community. This bill would remove the overly burdensome requirements that are now in the law that would mandate a surgical procedure and a court order for an individual's gender markers to change on a birth certificate. And then additionally, this bill provides more robust privacy protections for individuals who do seek to change their gender markers. And as I stated in the discussion on the committee report, we did incorporate recommendations from the registrar for vital statistics at CHCC to require attestations under penalty of law and the signature of a parent or guardian or legal representative for individuals under the age of 18. And the amended version of the bill has the full support of CHCC. So I'd like to ask for your support as well, colleagues. And it is fitting that we'd pass it now. It is one full year after CNMI Pride Talks last year, and it is now Pride Month that we're celebrating. And this is a bill that is really important to our LGBTQ community. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. The floor is still open for discussion. We're ready? Okay, Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vata, Representative Atal,
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta,
Yes.
Representative Joel Comatso,
Ungan.
Representative Vicente Comatso,
Yes.
Representative Demapan,
Hungan.
Representative Flores,
Yes.
Representative Guerrero, Representative Lizama,
Gan.
Representative Magofnia,
Ungan.
Representative Probst,
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan,
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan,
Ungan.
Representative San Nicolas,
Yes.
Representative Staffler,
Ungan.
Representative Yanktamai,
Howard.
Representative Yumo. Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, Clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, House Bill number 22-86 HD1 hereby passes the House. Floor Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I now offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22-87, a bill for an act to prohibit discriminations on the basis of sex, gender, sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation to be known as the CNMI Equality Act of 2021. So move.
Thank you, Floor Leader. A motion has been made by the Floor Leader to pass House Bill number 22-87 and has been seconded. Discussions. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. So again, this is Pride Month. June is June being Pride Month is about celebrating the contributions of the LGBTQ plus members of our community and around the world, and also raising awareness, colleagues, about the discrimination that LGBTQ plus individuals still face in many areas of life. The Equality Act that is before us today would provide explicit protections in our law against discrimination on the basis of sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation. This bill prohibits such discrimination in employment and inserts such protections in areas where non-discrimination statutes already exist, such as in the areas of health insurance, housing, civil service, various areas of commerce, and jury duty. This bill, again, was strongly supported by the LGBTQ plus advocacy community, as well as other stakeholders, the Attorney General as well. And I'd like to ask for your support today. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Any further discussions? Ready? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada? Representative Fatal?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babalta?
Hunggan.
Representative Joel Camacho?
Hunggan.
Representative Vicente Camacho?
Yes.
Representative Damapan?
Hungan.
Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero? Representative Lizama?
Hunggan.
Representative Magofnia?
Hungan.
Representative Probst?
Yes.
Representative Christina Sablan?
Yes.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Hunggan.
Representative Nicholas?
Yes.
Representative Staffler?
Hungan.
Representative Yang Tamay?
Aware.
Representative Yumo? Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, all 18 members present voted yes.
Thank you, clerk. With all 18 members present voting yes, House Bill number 22-87 hereby passes the House. I'd like to call for a quick recess. We'll rise back from recess, back to session. And before we went on recess, we were on bill calendar. And we're on the last bill on the calendar, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I offer a motion to pass House Bill number 22-102, a bill for an act to temporarily exempt the Commonwealth Ports Authority from paying the 1% public auditor's fee with respect to airport revenues. So move.
Thank you.
HS1.
Thank you, floor leader, and thank you for that clarification. Motion has been made to pass House Bill number 22-102, House Substitute 1, and it has been seconded. Discussion on the floor. Okay, if nobody wants to go, I'll go ahead. If you look to your tables, I would like to offer a floor amendment. Hereby move to amend the current text in House Bill 22-102 HS1. And should this amendment pass, it'll be HD1. I know on the top it says HS2, but there were just clarified with the clerk and the council regarding the title. So as you can see on page 1, to delete the word temporarily. On page 3, line 9, again, delete the word temporarily. On page 3, lines 11 to 14, delete this exemption is subject to a sunset provision of 5 years from the effective date of this act to afford the agencies time to obtain a clear determination from federal grantors as to whether the payment of the 1% public auditor fee from airport revenues is revenue diversion or not. Page 4, delete section 3, sunset clause in its entirety, and to renumber all remaining sections accordingly and consistent with the intent of the foregoing amendments. I hereby also move to allow the legal counsel together with the delegation clerk to make further non-substantive technical amendments. Excuse me. House clerk, sorry, thank you. A mistake there, House clerk. That are strictly necessary to effectuate the intent of this floor amendment prior to its transmittal. So moved. Thank you. A floor amendment has been offered by me and has been seconded in discussion on the floor. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. I do understand where you're coming from, Mr. Speaker, in proposing this amendment, and I respect your position. But I want to state for the record that I am really uncomfortable about making this a permanent exemption for CPA in the absence of a clear and final determination from the Federal Aviation Administration. I am also uneasy about removing the sunset clause in light of OPA's strong objections and CPA's significant deficiencies in its audit reports, which have nothing to do with the OPA fee. The officials that Representative Vicente Camacho and I met with last week, along with yourself, Mr. Speaker, and representatives from OPA, the Department of Finance, the Senate President, and CPA, those FAA officials were not from FAA headquarters, and they could not give us a definitive answer one way or another about whether the OPA fee is unlawful revenue diversion or not. They did say, as Ms. Peter noted in her comments earlier today, that a written determination could be requested and that they could assist in running that request up the chain to headquarters for an answer. OPA has already initiated that process for elevating the inquiry to FAA headquarters. And I must say, I agree with Ms. Peter that it is not good governance, colleagues, to pass legislation of this magnitude with incomplete information and while the agencies are still working to resolve the issue in dispute. A temporary exemption offers a way of meeting everyone in the middle. A 5-year exemption is longer than the 3 years that were originally proposed, and it's more than enough time to resolve the issues. This 5-year exemption also represents another attempt at compromise, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, and respectfully, I ask that we keep the sunset provision as is in this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Floor is open for discussion. Recognize Representative Richard Lozama.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, colleagues. I've heard all testimony, even from the OPA. At one point in time, this bill was supposed to be introduced or was introduced 3, 4 years ago. So what difference does it make now? What difference? I ask that we accept the recommendation. A good OPA who is now doing, in my own opinion, since I've been back in Saipan, probably the only OPA that actually wanted to do her job. Thank you. I hear back.
Thank you, Representative Richard Lozama. Floor is still open for discussion. Recognize Representative Patrick Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, the CPA is required by the federal grants to hire an independent auditor to audit their books because that's already a federal requirement. The FAA views the 1% as revenue diversion, which violates their grant assurance requirements. This bill fixes that, and it also has a safeguard for OPA because in the event that OPA provides any services to CPA, the bill allows OPA to bill CPA for the cost of those services. So in this, I will support this bill and these amendments that we have in the floor. I yield, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative San Nicolas. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? Clerk, I'd like for this amendment to be a roll call. Please call the roll.
Representative Fanta? Representative Patel?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta? Representative Joel Komatsu?
Hunggan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Damapan? Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero? Representative Lizama? Representative Magovnia?
Hunggan.
Representative Probst? Representative Christina Sablan?
No.
Representative John Paul Sablan?
Hunggan.
Representative San Nicolas?
Yes.
Representative Staffler? Representative Youngtamai? Representative Yumo?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Yes.
Representative Lizama?
Okay, yes.
Representative Probst?
No.
Representative Staffler?
No.
Representative Youngtamai?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 15 members voted yes and 3 members voted no.
Thank you, Clerk. With 15 voting yes, the amendment is hereby adopted, and we now move back to the main motion, which is now House Bill 22-102, HS1, HD1. Floor is open for discussions. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, I spent the weekend reviewing CPA's audit reports, and their books really need cleaning. There are a lot of actual significant deficiencies and non-compliance issues that actually do place CPA at risk of losing federal funds, which the independent auditors point out and which the public auditor noted in her remarks today. The auditors found, for example, that CPA failed to monitor project costs from fiscal years 2005 through 2019. They identified a number of unallowable project costs that could possibly result in funding loss and noncompliance. They found that CPA lacked awareness of program reporting requirements for passenger facility charges and failed to follow up with carriers for these facility charge payments, failed to keep separate accounting records. There were so many issues and so many question costs. And the thing to recognize here that's important for our discussion today is that nowhere in these audit reports is the OPA fee one of these issues. The OPA fee has never been cited in CPA's audit reports as a question cost that could possibly put CPA at risk of noncompliance and losing federal funds. The OPA fee has also never been charged or reimbursed from federal grants. It's been booked as an expense, assessed based on locally generated revenues as provided by our law. OPA maintains that from an accounting standpoint, this is an overhead cost or indirect cost that is allowed under FAA's own regulations and guidance. And again, there still is no clear determination that this OPA fee is revenue diversion. The FAA officials who came here said it may be, but they could not give us that determination themselves. And they said that question would have to be run up the chain for further review and clarification. So it's not an issue that we have a clear answer on. And OPA and finance want that clarification. And the process of elevating that inquiry has already begun. And again, now that this is a permanent exemption that this bill would afford CPA, I'm extremely uneasy in making decisions like this. In the absence of complete information and over the strong objections of the public auditor, and also in light of CPA's long record of noncompliance, not just with the OPA fee, but actual noncompliance with federal requirements. I do think, I recognize that this bill represents an effort at compromise, but I think that we are setting a, a, a truly problematic precedent, colleagues, for undermining the integrity and the independence of the government's most important watchdog against waste, fraud, and abuse of funds. I see the OPA fee as OPA sees it. It's the cost of oversight that all agencies and entities of this government should share in. And OPA has always been underfunded. Any exemption once granted is very, very hard to take back. And I do think that we should seriously reconsider moving forward on this legislation and making it a permanent exemption for CPA. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Recognize Representative Richard Lozama.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, colleagues. It was a hard decision if you looked at it, whether it's 3 years or 5 years, permanent. Um, I have to say yes, to give them a try. And I hope that someday in the future, the new legislature will look at it again, if that was effective or not. I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lozama. Any further discussion? Recognize Representative Angel Demapak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think the intent of this legislation has put us in a difficult position. No, we're kind of between a rock and a hard place. I want to believe that we all support the functions of OPA in this government. And I also want to believe that we all support the functions of CPA in terms of keeping our ports open so that we don't chokehold our economy. I'm just wondering, for the sake of discussion, and pardon me because I wasn't here in the previous session, but I hear that there is discussion ongoing to determine whether it is revenue diversion or not. And if that is the case, was there any discussion in the House on whether or not we should wait for that determination? What I hate to see is that we move forward with it today because there's no definitive determination, and then this bill becomes law, and the result comes back that it is a revenue diversion, and then we put the economy in jeopardy. So we're in a very difficult position now, and I think that I would like to support as much as possible both entities, but I just wanted to know whether there's that active discussion on whether we should wait for definitive determination or not, before we make this decision. I'm inclined to support the bill because of the sake of our economy, by way of keeping our airports and seaports open. But I don't want it to backfire also, that when this determination comes out unfavorable, that we have to rush back to the table to fix it legislatively, or that that small window of between being problematic and fixing the problem becomes detrimental to our livelihoods here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Demapan. Recognize Representative Leila Staff.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank colleague Demapan for bringing that up. I feel the exact same way. Both entities are important, both for our economy, for our access to the ports, both air and sea, for our people, and CPA, because of the accountability that we know is so important based on all of the things that we've seen happen over the course of so many years. And so, is it possible to keep this on calendar a little bit longer in order to wait for that information, is my question. And thank you.
Thank you, Representative Staffler. Um, if the members don't mind, can I go ahead and just chime in? I know Representative Angel also had his concerns, and Representative Staffler as well. The meeting with CPA and FAA, and this was also a meeting that I've had a few weeks prior to our most recent meeting, where Representative Camacho and Representative Tina Sablan were present. Their main issue is revenue diversion in any form. And with regarding the agency, it's that 1% OPA fee. Now, as mentioned by Representative Tina, and even during our discussions, they mentioned that the OPA fee is not really a non-compliance, but my understanding is because that fee has never been remitted. So how do you say something is revenue diversion when you haven't diverted it yet? And for my end, like Leader Demapan mentioned, we are caught between a rock and a hard place, and I'd rather err on the side of, if it is, we don't have that, like you say, the chokehold on our airport, which is very important to our economy, and not only for commercial reasons, but also for our residents and our people that travel for all kinds of reasons. Thank you. Floor is still open for discussions. Recognize Representative Tina Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for that background, and thank you, Leader Demapan, and Rep. Staffler for raising the question of whether we could wait for some further clarification. I certainly have no issues with that. That would be my preference, quite honestly. And I think this bill, when there was a sunset provision, the idea was to try to address the CPA concern with the kind of urgency that they were communicating, and to balance that against OPA's concern, because there really wasn't a clear definitive answer from FAA yet, right? And they wanted time to really get that answer. And I know that that process has begun. And I think that like there are meetings that are supposed to happen in the next couple of weeks. I have no objection to leaving this on the calendar. Maybe we could get an answer sooner rather than later. I would hope that we'd be able to get an answer sooner than the 3 years or the 5 years that we were originally proposing. But you're right that we are in a very difficult position, and that I think we all share an interest in supporting both OPA as well as CPA, and not undermining one, in favor of the other, especially if we don't have to, right? And I will also say that OPA expressed an interest in getting clarification, because if it is revenue diversion, they will not object to an exemption for the OPA fee for airport revenues, right? If they once they could get that clear answer, but it was just the absence of that clear answer that was troubling. So I would support keeping this on calendar, and really getting a better idea of how soon we could get that final determination from FAA. It might be worthwhile as well to enlist the support or the assistance of our delegate in coordinating communications with FAA headquarters. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Tina Sablan. Floor is still open for discussion. Ready? Ready? Clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Vada? Representative Bato?
Yes.
Representative Selena Babauta?
Yes.
Representative Joel Komatsu?
Hunggan.
Representative Vicente Komatsu?
Yes.
Representative Damapan? Representative Flores?
Yes.
Representative Guerrero? Representative Lizama?
Yes.
Representative Magovnia? Representative Probst? Representative Christina Sablan? Representative John Paul Sablan?
Hunggan.
Representative Sina Claus?
Yes.
Representative Staffler?
No.
Representative Yang Tamay?
Yes.
Representative Yumo? Representative Damapan?
With deep reservations, yes.
Representative Probst?
No.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, 15 members voted yes and 3 members voted no.
Thank you, Clerk. With 15 members voting yes, House Bill number 22-102, HS1, HD1 hereby passes the House. Thank you, members. That is the last on our bill calendar. We now move down to item number 17, miscellaneous business. Floor is open. Recognize Representative Joel Camacho.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As you were all aware from our last NIOTA session, that the hosting for the Pacific Mini Games delegates will be held in June 21st, and to further strengthen or to collaborate amongst our precincts, I'm respectfully asking, because apparently we're in charge of the food, um, the grounds, and I believe that part of the logistics. So I'm just respectfully asking if maybe each precinct can maybe pitch in at least at one local dish, if that's possible. At least the precincts in Saipan, because this is a SNIOD event. So the event is in June 21st, and I will create a group chat if that helps, and maybe list down a list of dishes that possibly you guys can coordinate amongst your precincts to assist in this hosting. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Representative Joel Camacho. Floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My family and I would like to wish the Filipino community a happy 124th Independence Day, honoring their culture, history, and also their sacrifice. Thank you.
Thank you, floor leader. Recognize Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And this concern was brought up last week by a lot of the participants, most especially the athletes that will be participating, representing the cinema in the mini games. That they haven't been granted administrative leave to prepare for these games. I understand that the games start this week, and they've been traveling back and forth, whether it's here on Saipan or the athletes that are representing the cinema from Rhoda and Tinian. They haven't been granted administrative leave in their travel time. They're actually going on personal leave right now to prepare for the games, and it's a very unfortunate situation for our people that will be representing the cinema. They're using up their annual leave to prepare for the games to represent the cinema in these competitions, and I just hope that the entities that they work for will follow through and grant admin leave, or respectfully asking the administration to allow entities to grant them admin leave for their participation and their preparation for these events that we'll be hosting in the next week or two. So, with that being said, we'd like to welcome our visitors from all the island nations across the Pacific. We welcome you guys home to the Sinamai, and we hope you enjoy yourself. And please be safe and take care. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. Floor is still open under miscellaneous. Recognize Representative Vicente Camacho.
Thank you, Speaker. I just wanted to inform this legislative body and the viewing public, the cinema service members and veterans, that I have requested the Office of the Attorney General for legal assistance to eligible CNMI service members and veterans individually or as a class seeking financial compensation for hearing loss and tinnitus caused by defective dual-sided black and yellow combat arms earplugs, a 3M product provided by the United States military from 2003 to 2015. As the chair of the House Committee on Federal and Foreign Affairs, I, along with the committee members, request any legal assistance the Office of the Attorney General can provide to any and all eligible service members or veterans who are legal residents of the CNMI in line with various national lawsuits against 3M. To my knowledge, none are CNMI residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Camacho. Floor is still open under miscellaneous. Ready? Ready? All right, we now move down to item number 18, announcements. Ready, members? All right, we now move down to adjournment, and I recognize the floor leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll offer a motion to adjourn subject to the call of the chair. So move.
Thank you, floor leader. A motion has been made to adjourn the session and has been seconded. Any discussions? Ready? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, stay. The ayes have it. The session's hereby adjourned. Thank you, members.